if your employees see that you actually care for them, we are not perfect, but if they see that you care for them, then they're a little bit more motivated to do more for the business and to be more productive because they recognize, hey, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Right here, this business actually cares more than usual for me and for my well-being, and we don't ask for anything in exchange. But you find that those employees become a whole lot more loyal to the business, and they themselves develop a stronger ownership mindset for the business.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Culture Zone. And joining me is someone who I have often admired and respected for quite some time, having been able to witness her leadership journey. So thank you so much, Shafia London, for joining me this evening. And for those of you who are not familiar with Shafia, Shafia is actually the country head for Banks Holdings Limited with responsibility for Barbados, St. and Dominica. Hi, Shafia.
Hi, Cara. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor. Just like you, I have seen you grow as well, and it's really a privilege to be here to share my thoughts with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that. And thank you for saying yes so quickly. I know, as the country head, your schedule is packed. Having literally just traveled and got back in the nick of time for this episode. So really appreciate you taking the time. And also a family lady. So I know the kids. What do you call them? The eggs.
My eggs.
I know that they're missing mommy right now, but we wouldn't keep you too long. So as I mentioned to you before, at the Culture Zone, we really want to create some insights, advanced discussions around corporate culture, change, leadership, and everything in between. And when I was thinking about your journey and the things that I've seen you accomplish, I thought a great topic for Shafia would be how do we navigate leading through a crisis, looking at reinforcing culture when it matters. And I know we are going to get right into that topic, but before we start, perhaps you can share with our audience a bit about yourself.
Certainly, as you mentioned, I'm first and foremost a mom. I always like to mention that first. I'm a mom of two boys, two rambunctious little boys, one 5 and one 12 years old. I am also country head of ABI. ABI is the largest beer company in the world. So I am the country head for Barbados, St. Vincent, and Dominica. In Barbados, which is the majority of our regional operations. Banks Holdings is a company that most persons in Barbados may recognize, which is responsible for Banks Breweries and Pine Hill Dairy. Those are the two, I would say, pop companies that you might recognize. I've been with the company for just over 12 years, and it has been my stomping ground, but also my learning ground. My journey with this company has been an amazing one. And like you say, it's really taught me a lot, especially when you speak about culture. As a matter of fact, when you start in this organization, the first thing they tell you is there are 10 principles on the wall. We need you to learn those principles and live those principles. Those principles speak to who we are. Even if you achieve great results, if you're not aligned with those principles, you're not achieving results the right way or the way we appreciate. And so every time we are doing, let's say, performance assessments, whenever we are recruiting, before we look for your qualifications, your experience, we do a cultural fit test. This is important to our business because we have to all be singing from the same hymn sheet, as your granny may say. And so it's not just about performance and results, it's also cultural fit.
Wow. I absolutely love that. And when you speak about the commitment to those 10 principles, sometimes, certainly in the private sector, when you're working in a fast-paced organization, there is this tendency to disregard principles, core values for the sole purpose of achieving results. And it's really refreshing hearing that come from someone of your level as well, just reinforcing the importance of achieving the results, but achieving the results the correct way. And I'm sure that that also plays a role in how you navigate crises. Because if you have that foundation already built in, persons understand there is no compromise in here, then even in a crisis, it means maintaining those principles. So, if you don't mind, can you share with us an experience that you may have had navigating or leading the team through a crisis? And how was that? How was that for you?
I feel like the last 4 years could be encapsulated as crisis. But before I go there, I want to go back to something you said and then answer the question. I talked about our principles, and you're absolutely right. The principles, the culture of the company is what allows you to know how to navigate in different circumstances. For example, in our company, I'll just mention a few of them, a few of what you would always hear us talk about. One is safety. So we believe that if you come to work, you should go back home with all your limbs and your mental faculties in one. We believe in not taking shortcuts. So we try not to take shortcuts in anything we do. We also believe in people, that people is the foundation of our business. And so we put our people above our results. And then another one, which is really important, is that we have an ownership mindset. So everything we do, we think like owners and not just employees. Now, those are just some of the 10. But what it does is it gives you an opportunity to actually apply those principles, especially when difficult situations arise, which will test your leadership or test your own existence in the business. So, for example, let's take COVID. We believe in people. During the COVID pandemic, a number of organizations, including ours, was faced with a new way of doing business. We even had a period when we could not sell our products because most of our products have alcohol, and there was an alcohol ban. Ordinarily, a company would look at its bottom line and say, I can't keep my staff, I have to make cuts. And usually that's the first place a lot of businesses tend to look at. But because our culture is one where people form the foundation of our business, we did not touch a single staff. Instead, we went all out for our staff. So we would do daily checks. If a staff got COVID, we would ensure they receive food baskets, that they're well taken care of. We always take care of our people as long as there's a crisis, because for us, that's the foundation of our business. Another example is in St. Vincent, when there was a volcanic eruption. Again, our business was basically crippled for several weeks. We couldn't produce and we couldn't sell. We didn't shut up shop and basically start finding ways of reducing costs to meet a full year target. Instead, we pivoted, and we pivoted based on our culture. Our culture speaks to taking care of people, and therefore the efforts of not just the regional business, but also the global business were directed to taking care of our people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we were able to find every single person, those who were in the red zone as they defined it, or the yellow zone, enable them to move out of those zones, try to find housing for them, and always doing checks, provide water. We shut our entire business down when we could have operated to provide clean water, because we make beverages. So the majority of our ingredient is water based. And so we had tanks and tanks of clean water, potable water. And we said, you know what, we're not going to produce products. Instead, we're going to use this water to provide to our people and the community. So we opened the brewery and allowed people to come and fill their buckets and their pails for water for drinking and cooking purposes. And that comes from culture. That comes from us recognizing that people is the foundation of your business.
So wow. I have so many follow-up questions from from just that. Okay, let me try to simplify them. Let's start with the very last comment in terms of how you were able to do that, not just for the employees in St. Vincent, but also in the community. Sometimes when we think about culture, I'm sure there are organizations today that would love to do such great work, like yourself. And for some reason, they're having a difficult time mobilizing the staff to contribute in that way. How have you able to the, the difficult time like that when they prefer to perhaps choose themselves or choose their family also understand what they represent in the community? How do you get them to think big picture without feeling as though you have to force them to provide support with the initiative?
It goes right back to where I started, the cultural alignment. So one of the cultures that I didn't mention in the examples I gave is that we thrive when our community thrives. And so our staff know that and we have to live that. I, as the leader, I have to lead by example. So if there is a crisis, I do not back away from it. I cannot back away from it. I will be the one there turning on that pipe to give somebody that water. And so, our staff see it and they feel it and they live it because it's part of who we are. If we don't detect that in you when we are recruiting you, for instance, you're not a great fit with our organization. You may fit in somewhere else, but certainly not with us. And so you find that our staff are generally very thoughtful, very loving people who don't just think of themselves, they think of the community in which we exist and they recognize that our business, we depend on the people, but we also need the community. So we do a lot of community initiatives and our staff get deeply involved in it, from feeding the homeless, cleaning up beaches. We have a Christmas basket initiative that we execute where we go out into the communities and we give baskets to persons in need. And that's not me, that's not us using delivery for that. Our staff literally do that themselves. And I mean, if there are persons among us who are not necessarily aligned with that, I think after a while you feel guilty because everyone, 8 out of 10 of us are like that, and you realize that you are actually the odd one out, and you are not culturally aligned, and you will be assessed based on your cultural alignment. As I said, your results are just as important as your cultural alignment because results could be temporary, results could be short term, but your alignment with who we are and how we do business speaks to the longevity and sustainability of our business. We have to take care of our communities. We are not an island all on our own as a business. We rely on the community as consumers, as customers, as even, I would say, collaborators, stakeholders. We do business with the community. It's an ecosystem, and we are just part of that ecosystem. And so sometimes it's necessary for us to step up when there is a weakened part of the ecosystem. We have to sometimes give a little extra, and we are always happy to do that.
That is commendable. And when I think about culture per se, it is not something that you wake up tomorrow and you're able to implement, create. And I was going to ask you, but you answered the question around how do you embed that in your culture, that community spirit, that giving, that purpose aligned. And it is in your day to day. You are not simply just waiting for the next big crisis. It is something that you guys live and do throughout your year. And so that acclimatizes your workforce, acclimatizes your teams to the true culture that you're really trying to embed. So I absolutely love that for you guys. It's just so amazing. I'm liking this company even more. What
Yeah,
are
we,
you?
we we earn, we say something every day that we earn our living every day. And
Yeah.
that doesn't just speak to the results. It's every day you do something to make a difference. You do something to demonstrate that you're delivering the results, but you're also aligned with the culture of the business.
So let's go back to the things that you've also done for your employees, particularly when you mentioned how you would have navigated COVID and you would have treated the employees during that period. And especially in Barbados, I remember there was a lot of communication in the media on some companies that really had some challenges with how they were navigating that particular period, right? In your experience, how have you seen that that type of engagement or that type of care that you have extended to your employees? How have you seen that impact your business in a positive way?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, difficult situations can test your leadership, but they also give you an opportunity to really build resilience and, interestingly, to build teamwork. So, if your employees see that you actually care for them, we are not perfect, but if they see that you care for them, then they're a little bit more motivated to do more for the business and to be more productive because they recognize, hey, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Right here, this business actually cares more than usual for me and for my well-being, and we don't ask for anything in exchange. But you find that those employees become a whole lot more loyal to the business, and they themselves develop a stronger ownership mindset for the business. It's almost like, I can't explain it, but a brewery employee, a pineal employee, just from the way we speak and the way we defend our business. If I'm out with a group of friends, you could only consume my products. You become loyal to the bone. The staff will tell you that. For example, we have a very strong safety culture. And when we go out or even in your homes, you become these vanguards of safety in your own home, and you realize you are actually using the same skill set at home. And you are now the person that you are at work in terms of how you view things and how you treat people and how you take care of yourself and take care of your family. And that's what we it's not about a learned it's not just learning a skill set, it's not just following the rules. We actually transition you from following the rules to being that type of person. And so we find that when you encourage employees to be more resilient and to show them that they can bounce back from difficulties and to show them that it might not be perfect, but we are all here together, and to show them that through difficult times, we will stand by them. Those same employees really become strong leaders in the business and defenders of the business, and they give extra.
Yeah, that's awesome. And being an HR professional, I could imagine that that's also doing a lot for your brand in terms of your employer brand and persons, attracting strong talent to your organization, retaining the right persons in the business as well, the right talent. Your engagement levels must be through the roof, that's really good. It's very encouraging when the head of the organization sees the value in these things, and what it can potentially or how it can potentially impact the business in a positive way. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I wanted to talk to you a bit about accountability, especially because of the type of business that you're in. That is something where, and you, again, going back to one of your 10 principles being safety, how do you establish accountability culture in your business?
Accountability is, of course, very crucial. By taking ownership and leaders encouraging the team to do the same, everyone feels responsible, especially when you need to find a solution. So I would say that to build that culture, first, you as a leader, you have to take ownership. Even if, say, for example, you're in a crisis scenario, even if the crisis wasn't caused by you have to step up. You have to accept responsibility for guiding the team through the challenge. And so you are creating a model of accountability to the team so they know what you expect from them. And your team will obviously follow the lead when they see that you are taking responsibility for navigating through situations such as storms where you have no influence on it. You are not responsible for it, but you have to take ownership and really guide them through. Accountability for me is also really about clarity. It's about assigning clear responsibilities outside of the workplace. If I'm part of any discussion or organization, the worst thing for me is for us to end up with planned actions and the meeting wraps up, but nobody knows who is the owner, who has to actually execute. There's no specific assignment of tasks to individuals. But in our business, we believe in the action log. It's like the holy grail for us. This is the action, this is the timeline, and you are responsible. We don't share that. You don't say Kara and Shafia are. It's one of you, and it's for the other one to utilize the team to get to the end result. It doesn't mean that you are going to solve this issue on your own. It doesn't mean you're wholly responsible for fulfilling the deliverable. What it simply means is that you are responsible for making sure it happens. That may include mobilization of your team members, of resources. It may mean pulling all the pieces together, but ultimately there's clarity and there's no confusion, and it ensures that nothing falls through the cracks. Sometimes it does because, we're not perfect beings and it's not a perfect life, and not everybody will ultimately act accountably. They would still drop the ball, but at least you know who is responsible so you can call them out on it, and they would know that this is not acceptable. And then the last part for me about accountability is really about follow up. What crisis has taught us is that you have to follow up with your team to ensure that responsibilities are fulfilled. You have to review what worked, what didn't help, and it would help you to strengthen accountability for to deal with future challenges. So you have to always review. And I know there's this common term people use, circle back. You have to always go back and say, did I close this gap? Am I closer to fulfilling whatever goal we're trying to achieve? As an organization, that's the way we do our business every day. We always follow through, we always follow up, we always assign leaders, and the leader themselves have to take ownership. And so by doing that, you really build a culture of accountability, which carries through any circumstance, whether it's crisis, whether it's normal business as usual, whether it's looking at new opportunities. We follow that same type of approach, and you find that it makes people more accountable. But again, it goes back to one of the things on the wall for us, which is we are owners. And if you're an owner, you're not going to let the ball drop because you know the consequence of that. The consequence is that the business doesn't do well. You're not going to be able to sustain yourself. So that's how we think. If I'm not accountable, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, the business doesn't do well and it has implications for me and so on. So it's all about doing that every day in your normal routine so that when a crisis or a major situation occurs, you're using the same skill set, the same culture.
And it must take, as soon as you were speaking, one of the things that really stood out for me is the immense planning, the level of planning that perhaps takes place in your business on a daily basis. So if you can share perhaps some techniques or some ways that you have really embedded this notion of planning, because you have to plan to be able to execute. And I find sometimes some organizations either they miss the planning or they plan really well, but they fall down on the execution. How are you able to tie that together? with your team?
We always say, well, it's known, it's said academically as well, that 90% of delivery is actually planning and 10% is execution. In planning, again, you go back to the accountability. What we do is we try to get all the stakeholders, the key stakeholders, involved in the process so that you can cover all your bases. If, for example, we want to, let's say we are bringing a new product to market, it's not just the marketing team coming up with an idea and saying, oh, let's bring a new product to market. You have to consider all the stakeholders who are involved in that process and invite them from day one to give their inputs. That way, they're able to identify the areas that you need to think about and you need to have answers for. It is not always perfect, but at the end of the day, you try to cover your bases as much as possible and have what if scenarios and have scenarios where you can respond quickly. So we always try to work as a team. I think that helps in the planning, bringing people together, having all of their feedback, having all of the angles from which you should view a challenge or an opportunity. And then together, you develop a plan of how you're going to get to the point that you're going to get to. Because it's oftentimes we take a lot of things for granted, and those become your stumbling blocks to actually get into that point that you're trying to get to. So involving the stakeholders, working together as a team to identify a roadmap of how you're going to get there, holding people accountable for different milestones on that roadmap, always having a leader for each of the milestones. And of course, you also need an overall leader to pull it all together because you don't want people to be working in silos and not talking with each other. There are some stages of execution where you must work in silos. You must go away in your subgroups as an individual, gather information to be able to solve your specific milestone. But in doing that, you have to bring it back to the group so that it connects. Because unless it connects, we are still not going to get to the end point. And so we have these, what we call touch points when we are addressing a specific issue. And you define the time frames you want to have those touch points depending on the complexity of the issue. It could be daily. Let's say we're in a crisis situation. We are going to meet every day at 8 a.m. and the relevant stakeholders. Let's say we're preparing for hurricane. You are responsible for sandbags by the door. Monday morning, next morning, I want to know, did you get the sandbags by the door? You're responsible for the bunkers so that if we need people to be safely sheltered, you have to provide, the sardines and the cricks, the biscuits. Have you bought them? So the next morning, you have the leaders of the different milestones exchanging and understanding how they are connected to each other and how we are all part of a bigger picture that we are trying to achieve. What happens in many organizations is that these milestones they become animals of their own and they go off in different tangents and you never bring it back together. And so there's a disconnect and everybody feels like, but I'm doing my part. Yes, you are, but you're not talking with each other. And maybe you made a decision that could impede or impact on another aspect of this big picture. And so it's important to keep the communication lines flowing and we bring things back together always. I find that ultimately, if you do that, if you talk, meet, hold each other accountable, you get closer to the end result and you get there more efficiently. Maybe not faster, but you get there more efficiently.
You have shared so many nuggets. But let's go back to when you were speaking about the need to collaborate and the need to ensure that you are communicating with other persons who are a part of the process. And for some persons, I mean, there's so many tools that we can use. Persons are using ballot scorecard with their strategic planning, having their initiatives, identifying who owns what. Persons are familiar with RACI. For those of you who aren't, meeting who's responsible, who's accountable, who needs to consult with, or who do you need to inform, and just embedding those type of principles into the business. Yeah. Um, but you also mentioned, Shafia, that there are some occasions when it doesn't always go as planned. You how would you advise who has to navigate a scenario where the accountability is really lacking, the ownership is lacking? Someone who is listening to this right now and saying, this sounds like a perfect organization. This sounds really ideal. How can I create that same culture into my business? What would be your recommendations, or perhaps how have you navigated things like that where it didn't always go as planned?
Sure. The famous song that says you can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't always predict the weather is so accurate. You could have the perfect plan or what you think is the perfect plan, and then you just get an unexpected factor. It could be a person, it could be a external issue, but it could be anything really that really diverts you from the plan and diverts you from the step that you're on. And so what you again, it goes back to what you've been developing with your team around resilience. I think one of the strengths of our company is the resilience. We bounce back. And it's a trait that you really develop over time. It starts with encouraging a problem solving mindset. Like when we encounter a problem, you don't throw your hands in the air. Yes, immediately you may throw the hands in the air, you may throw some things in the air, but after a few seconds, as they say, you have a few seconds every day to melt down. That's acceptable. That's normal. But after a while, you have to be able to approach challenges with a problem solving attitude. So rather than seeing the obstacle as being insurmountable, you always have to view an issue as an opportunity to think creatively and to develop new solutions. When persons see you leading with this mindset, they are able themselves to adopt it. And so anytime you face a situation, you always ask, I'm looking at this from the wrong way. What is the opportunity here? How could I solve it? So over time, your problem solving skill really develops. And that's a mindset that has to grow over time. The second part of that I would say is important is celebrating the small wins. Many times we there's a problem and the problem becomes the whole picture. And we don't recognize how much we have accomplished to even get to that point of having to deal with this problem. Sometimes I tell my staff, that's a good problem to have. We have a good problem. Because some problems are good problems to have if you really think about it optimistically. But you have to celebrate progress. Like, no matter how minor, at the end of the day, we are all humans, and humans like to be celebrated. Humans, you have to keep the morale up and remind people step by step we are moving towards a solution. We may not be there, but we are moving there, and let's celebrate that we have moved one step closer. And so we celebrate quick wins. You would find in our organization, for example, if the sales team does well in a month, we have breakfast, we celebrate even if the year is not finished, we are one step closer to what we want to do for the year. So every opportunity that there's a win, you have to celebrate it, and it helps to build that sense of really navigating through difficult times, but also helping people to understand that it's not always going to be perfect, but it takes your view away from just the negative side of things. And last but not least, I think again, this is perhaps a skill set that takes time, is every time you have gone through a process, let's say a project or a crisis or something that you were working with and, things may not have gone perfectly, you must take time to reflect. Reflect on what went well, what you could have handled better. It's not necessarily about assigning blame, but learning from the experience so that for the future, you can collectively improve your ability to handle future challenges. So even if something failed, it may have failed for a reason, it may have failed to get your attention to something that's even better. You must spend time reflecting. when there is what I would say human factor that has contributed to whatever divergence that has happened from a plan, this is where accountability comes in and holding people accountable. As a leader, I don't believe in public embarrassments. So my staff, for example, my reports, they always argue with each other that the other is the favorite one. And that's because they know behind closed doors or one on one, I am going to rough you up. I'm going to hold you accountable, but no one else sees that. And when you go through the door, you come through, feeling, you could feel it one of two ways. I don't want to be here. I don't want to work with her in the organization. Or, you know what, I need to do better. I'm going to try to do better because I know someone is monitoring and someone is assessing how I'm doing. And so you find that I have my reports all thinking that I'm not speaking that way. I'm not roughing up, as they say in slang, the other person. So they think I'm nice to the other one. But all of them would then in a room say, you think she doesn't do that to me? She does the same thing to me. But it's about, you don't want to embarrass people and break them down in front of others. So I try my best not to do that and to have those type of one-on-one to ensure they know, listen, you were part of this process and your negligence, your whatever, contributed. Are you on board or are you not on board? If it's a repeat, then I may have a very tough conversation with you and I would have to say to you, listen, maybe this is not for you. I can't hold it against you if you don't see us as part of your vision and you don't want to be here. I can't force you to be here. So it's perhaps best that we go our separate ways because ultimately we need people who are on this ship helping us to navigate it. If this is not your ship, there's a yacht somewhere else that you might enjoy being on. It's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. And people come to me with those same conversations. They may say, they sometimes say, boss, I don't think I want to be here anymore because such and such. I say, "So I will miss you. You've done a lot for us, but I understand. This is not your ship. This is not where you want to be. I understand. All right. And let's move on because you will become a blocker whether or not you will become a blocker and you have to deal with blockers. You can't just ignore it, sweep it on the carpet. You're not going to be motivated to do work. You're not going to contribute to your fullest authentic self to the process. You're going to always have these hidden talents that we can't unlock for you for whatever reason. So you have to have the tough conversations and know when there are blockers and know when it's time to exit. Um, and but in the meanwhile, you must, as I said, be able to work through the process of problem solving, celebrating your wins, and debriefing after every issue or crisis.
So I actually want to share something. I was reading an article as I was preparing for this episode. And I just want to say to the listeners that we did not plan this, okay? Why Shafia does not have visibility of this article. All I said to her was the topic, okay? But there's a Harvard Business Review article, and it's titled "How Great Companies Think Differently About Crises." And I'm actually going to send it to you, Shafia, immediately after.
Wow.
I feel like though you have carefully and eloquently articulated everything that this author was trying to get out to the reader. In fact, when I summarize it, it really discusses how some companies leverage their values and cultural strength to not only survive crises, but to emerge stronger from them. It examines how great companies use crisis as opportunity to reinforce their commitment to employees and customers, offering examples of how leaders can authentically lead through challenging times. It also emphasizes the importance of a resilient culture driven by a commitment to a larger purpose, which aligns well with everything that you've been saying. So it's just quite interesting. I have to share that article with you. And for those of you who are watching, I encourage you to read that article as well to add even more meat to this chicken leg or a chicken breast that Shafia had served up on a dish for us tonight. So before we wrap up, you mentioned a hot topic, human, a hot word, human. And you being a country head, you are also human, right? So I wanted to get your feedback in terms of any experiences that you said, okay, I don't like particular thing about our culture, or I absolutely love this particular thing about our culture, and how it has impacted you, perhaps more, mentally, and how did you navigate that one thing?
Like I said, it's you will never achieve perfection in anything. And it's about finding the balance that works for you as an individual. So in my role as a leader, I have been with this organization and I've had to confront numerous problems, external and internal, and it has really brought out different skill set that I didn't even know I had. So you would always be faced with challenges. You would always be confronted with things that lie ahead, and you have to reorient your organization. One of the, I would say, like the key challenge for us is that we are part of a global organization, and not everything fits. And so sometimes you have to battle a global mandate with now local cultural fit and find what works. And that could create a lot of frustrations. But again, if you're using the problem solving, the resilience, you find your way through it, and you always try to build your case so that the global team could see that it's an opportunity for us to perhaps be different in our specific setting. So I would say that in our organization, that creates the most frustration. The cultural clashes that are not organizational culture, but where you are doing business and how you do business, where you do business. What I love about our organization is just the determination and the culture to see every opportunity to grow and drive that accountability. We're always trying to improve. So we listen to our employees. We have this 20-minute engagement survey that we do where our employees really get to go deep about what bothers them, what they like. And it's anonymous. I don't get to see who says what, but I get to really understand what the employees are thinking. And because it's anonymous, you find that they're very, very honest, maybe brutally sometimes, and you get to truly understand the mind of your employees and delve deeper and try to make it better for them. It will never be perfect. I will not be able to ever create a perfect workplace. We will always lose employees. We would always have challenges that we might not be able to overcome immediately or in the way that a specific employee wants us to. But at the end of the day, I like that I get to hear what employees say. Employees get to hear what I have to say. And that's because we believe in simplicity. So, in our organization, we don't have offices. You stand up and you talk to me. I'm right in front of your face. So you can't hide. I can't hide from you. We have to talk to each other. And that helps us with that openness, that transparency, that teamwork. It helps us. And I really appreciate that about the ABI culture, how we could really talk with each other and hold each other accountable day by day. And my team in all of the three islands, they've been an amazing bunch. The core team, most of our people have been with us for 10 years and more. So I know it's working. I know it's working. There'll always be people come and go. But if you're core, if 80% of your employees have been with you for more than 10 years, you're doing something right. Absolutely right. And so I really appreciate being with them, having this opportunity to grow with them and really appreciate how we challenge and how we problem solve, how we navigate crisis.
Amazing. Amazing. And I really hope that they get to see this as well, to see just how the heartfelt words that you shared about them, that's something that is amazing coming from a leader. And I really believe that they're blessed to have you. I remember I saw you post a photo. There was an employee who was expecting at the time, a female employee. She was pregnant, and you guys had like a baby shower for her at the office, and you had
Yes.
the people doing I think it was toilet paper challenge.
Yes, it is.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I just absolutely love this. So that always stuck with me as I started to get into my own career in terms of driving employee engagement and creating a culture and that type of stuff. So great, great job. Keep up the great work. I know that it must be contributed in a very positive way within the organization. If it's one organization I seldom hear anyone speaks negatively about, it is your company. And I know that that's a testament to your leadership, the culture that you guys are building, and to the rest of the leaders in the businesses. So
Thank you so much.
thank you so
That
much.
is so flattering. I appreciate the compliment.
But is there anything that you want to share? Any last words that you wanna share on culture, on change, on leadership, anything at all that you want to leave us with?
I would say that at the end of the day, we are always going to face challenging moments. It's never going to be a perfect workplace, no matter where you go. The grass is green where you water it. And so, as leaders, we have to build strength and trust between the team and you. When your team sees that they could rely upon you effectively, whether on a day to day basis or especially in times of crisis, they are more likely to trust the leadership in both good times and bad. And this could result in higher morale, greater commitment, and stronger teamwork, and ultimately great results. And so, as a leader, we have to take responsibility, we have to focus on solutions and help our teams to navigate challenges, but also inspire them. Tough times, they're really an opportunity to build resilience and to build accountability with the team. The last 4 years, they have been tough in more ways than one. They have been brutal. And I always say to my team, I just want one good year, no challenges. But I know it's never going to happen. But in the meantime, you really live and you grow, contribute to the business and the outcomes of the business by believing in the people and working together, standing united, even in the face of adversity.
Awesome. Awesome. And I do hope it gets better. I hope that the number of crises that you have to navigate at least reduces in a year. And big up to the backstage. Take care of your leader. She's amazing. And ladies and gents, that is it. That is Shafia London, our country head for Banks Holdings Limited with responsibility for Barbados, St. Vincent and Dominica, sharing with us on leading through a crisis, reinforcing culture that matters most. And my vision to you guys is, as Shafia does on a daily basis, lead from the front. Hold you accountable as well, so that you can hold your team and your organization accountable to the culture. I'm Cara Boyce, and thank you for joining the Culture Zone.
Thank you, Cara.